Unless you have been living under a rock, you have probably heard the news by now. Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted sex offender who pled guilty to solicitation of a 14-year-old, was actually the good guy all along. That and the federal investigation that identified another 30 of his underage victims, at least, was either not that big of a deal or was made up out of whole cloth. On top of that, there is no Epstein list. There was no honeypot operation. He killed himself in jail. There was a technical glitch with the cameras, and a few of the guards fell asleep when it happened. And of course, as we are all starting to hear now, his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, was actually innocent. She was actually a victim herself. Why exactly is she in jail again? Our condolences to her family for her impending suicide in a few weeks. If this story wasn't literally built off of the suffering of exploited children, it might actually be funny. There's a million videos out there breaking down every conceivable theory and every shred of evidence about Epstein. If you want to dive into a very deep, very dark rabbit hole on this, you can do that just about anywhere on the internet if you haven't already. But that's not what this show is about. The whole Epstein saga is also coinciding with this, shall we say, mass migration of influencers out of Trumpistan. Comedy podcasters, aka the new kingmakers apparently, are openly asking not only what the Trump-Epstein debacle is all about, but also why Trump is suddenly going back on all of his other promises. There are viral stories going around, like the one that claims Joe Rogan apparently confronted Trump at a private dinner about ICE raids, as if Trump's own campaign did not hand out mass deportation signs at his 2024 rallies. People are confused why Trump isn't stopping the wars he said he would stop on day one. It's almost like Trump didn't approve the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, or his son-in-law isn't personal family friends with Benjamin Netanyahu, or that Trump himself didn't okay the very first sale of lethal military equipment to Ukraine all the way back in 2017. This will probably be controversial, but it shouldn't be. If you're surprised about Trump's actions in his first 6 months in office of his second term, it's because you simply aren't paying attention. Trump has never stuck to his promises. I don't care what his strongest supporters say. For the last 10 years, he has been at the forefront of political life in America. And all along the way, he has shown time and time again that he has no problem saying whatever he needs to get elected. He makes promises based on what the audience at the time wants to hear. And whether you are a supporter at a rally in Wisconsin praying that Hillary Clinton will be arrested and thrown in Guantanamo Bay, or whether you are Joe Rogan or Andrew Schultz or Dave Smith banking that he will actually end the wars and make America great again, you have to realize by now that you're being lied to, and you have been all along. It's almost like this is the way it was always going to go. If you can't see that at this point, despite the 10 years and mountains of evidence before you, it's either because you aren't paying attention or you want to believe what Trump is telling you. Neither is a good method for discerning the truth. And that leads me to my actual point. Because this certainly is not unique to Trump, and it is even less unique to Republicans or politicians writ large. Trump may be a special case when it comes to lying to the American people, but he is not alone. Politicians do not care about you. They never will. They will always put their career and their legacy first and foremost. They are, at their core, selfish people who care about power and status. That's it. Apply this rule to every single politician, and to every single thing any of them ever say. I don't care if it's your local city council member or a serious presidential candidate. If you are anywhere near the apparatus of elections, and for more than 10 years I have been, then you are completely aware that 90% of being a politician is making phone calls and asking rich people for money. Good people of integrity rarely volunteer for a job in which that is the description. Good people are so rare in this profession, in fact, that you will be right more often if you just assume that there aren't any. This is what has always annoyed me most about the Trump phenomenon, because this was always the way it was going to go. No Democratic mounted campaign, no protest movement, no news story or 60-minute special was ever going to damage Trump, much less take him down permanently. The same goes for his movement, which will surely outlive him. His existence in American life is by definition a rebuke of those things. The only way Trump would ever crumble was because eventually he would collapse under his own weight. That was always how this was going to go. You saw this with the Trump-Elon fallout. It was already building then. Trump and Musk made Doge the center of American attention. They sold the sizzle of government reform, and when it became time to produce a steak, they came up short. That is not a surprise. Maybe it was a surprise to Trump and Musk and their teams, but even if that's true, then it's because they don't know the first two things about how the apparatus of government actually works. Or they knew all along that they would not find anywhere near the cuts they promised, but they thought that their marketing of it all could win the day anyway. Those are literally the only two options, and no matter how you slice it, they are lying to you one way or another. And this is what has driven me so crazy about the Democratic Party since 2016. You would think that a national political party that is basically creative of, for, and by campaign strategists might somehow have a semblance of a coherent political strategy, but wouldn't we all just be so lucky? If any of these people knew what they were talking about or actually wanted to get rid of Trump, they would have not spent 10 years spinning their wheels trying to cook up any number of bullshit theories about his presidency, and they would have done the only logical thing to do, which is allow it to collapse under its own weight. We might finally be seeing what that looks like in real time, but I remain skeptical. For the rest of us, especially those of us who find ourselves politically homeless, this whole Jeffrey Epstein saga should be a line in the sand moment. Because make no mistake, the near future of Trump's entire presidency is going to be consumed with damage control around this story. It is a hell of his own making. That's why it works. They are going to try out every theory they can possibly figure out. And you have already seen some truly insane ones hit the public testing phase. How about a few of these? Ghislaine is innocent. Maybe she's actually a victim. Trump was in the docks, but the docks don't mean he's guilty. It wasn't actually about sex trafficking at all. It was about money laundering. Maybe Obama did it. Or maybe Hillary did it. Next week, Mitt Romney and John McCain will have been in on it. Maybe it was the Mossad, or China, or Russia. Hell, maybe it was the royal family. If there is a literal video of Trump on Epstein's Island doing exactly what up until 5 minutes ago we all thought was going on that island, these same people who are telling you today that there actually are no videos will turn around and tell you that the video you are looking at with your own eyes is actually AI. The theories these people are going to throw at you will become increasingly more unhinged, make no mistake. We absolutely cannot let them get away with it. Some of these bullshit lines will stick with some extremely gullible members of Trumpistan. Some people won't believe any of it. And like we have discussed on this channel before, most people simply won't know what to believe anymore and will just tune it all out. That is what is coming. And that is the real, lasting danger of the Epstein story. Even a story as sick and insidious as this will find a way to be memory holed out of existence as long as Trump and his friends can find a way to tread water long enough for the rest of the country to be distracted by next week's chaos. I have been a political consultant for more than 10 years, and before that, a student journalist. The entire purpose behind creating the New Framers was to escape the day-to-day minutia of the ebb and flow of political breaking news, to zoom the lens of history out further and further so that we could make better sense of our time in history without the noise of the news cycle. But there comes a time when that project must be amended so that we can focus on the breaking news of the now and try to see what the bigger picture of the moment is actually trying to tell us about our near-term future. If this Jeffrey Epstein story is any guide, that story does not bode well for what it means to tell the truth in the 21st century. Because the Epstein story is perfect for our moment. It combines all the most salacious aspects of what grabs attention in the attention economy. Billionaire secret cabals, horrendous, unspeakable crimes, financial skullduggery, shadowy deep state figures, foreign intelligence, the list goes on. To believe Trump's narrative about Epstein is to ask the American people to believe a completely insane chain of events. But that is not at all new in Trump world. It's not new in the political world at all. Trump is obviously a special case. His entire career is a dark caricature of an entire system of politics that rests its foundation on lies, deception, and public marketing. Trump might take that to the extreme, but no one in American political life is above it. If Donald Trump and the supporters who helped him get elected are allowed to get away with waving the Epstein story off into obscurity, and I think there's a good chance that they will be, future leaders and future despots will absolutely take note. And that's always been the real danger of Trump. Not so much who he is, but what he represents, what he ushers into our system. He is the wrecking ball that destroys the last remaining wall of truth in our system. He and his supporters have been happy to play that role since he rose to prominence in 2015. And while their own tendency to say, to hell with the facts, is coming back to bite them now, the rest of us have been living with that sting for a decade. How much will a future us have to suffer for that? Even Tucker Carlson, in the most Tucker Carlson way ever, had the theme of the Epstein story almost right. In an interview with the German publication Bild, he said, quote, "And I also think bigger than that. And this is something that maybe not everyone in the White House understands, though I think they will. It's a metaphor. It represents something bigger than it is. I personally don't think the fate of nations rises or falls on the questions of Jeffrey Epstein. I just don't. But I do think the fate of nations rises and falls on the question of who's really in charge, who's making these decisions, and why." Unquote. Well, he's probably right that the fate of nations will not rise and fall on questions of Jeffrey Epstein. But the fate of nations absolutely can rise and fall on our ability to agree on a shared reality about the world. Jeffrey Epstein's crimes should be fully brought to light, and to the extent that other people were in on it, they should be brought to justice. But the future of America and of the Western world may not rest on that happening. But if we become truly unable to agree on the most basic, fundamental aspects of reality, then what kind of future will that be? Nearly every adult in this country was alive to see Epstein's story unfold right in front of their own eyes. There are undoubtedly millions of hours of YouTube content, endless social media posts and commentaries, Netflix documentaries, nightly newscasts. There were entire presidential campaigns about it. We all know the story by heart, front and back. And yet, even still, we are being asked not to believe our own eyes again. If in the end we are able to memory hold even this story, then there really is no limit to the amount of wool that can be pulled over the country's eyes. Maybe at other times in human history, this level of mass psychosis might not have been fatal, but I don't think we're in that time anymore. When I look forward 5, 10, 50 years from now, I don't know about you, but I see a world that becomes more chaotic, not less. I see a world where it becomes more difficult to discern the truth, not one where the truth becomes clear more readily. I see a world where the consequences of our mass belief are more stark. I see a dangerous world where, as a species, and especially among our political leaders, we are more flirtatious with disaster than ever. That does not sound like a good time to lose our ability to think critically. We already live in a world where our political leaders cannot be trusted. We live in a world where the news cannot be trusted. We are quickly entering a world where our own eyes and ears and memories cannot be trusted. What else do we have in that world but our ability to think critically and clearly? What other skills could be worth more in that world than restraint, than not jumping to conclusions based on what we want to believe? What could be more valuable in that world than a highly refined sense of well-placed skepticism? Our ability to tell what is true about the world is being gutted in real time. And since the beginning, the Jeffrey Epstein story has been a clear example of that. The future of nations may not rise and fall on questions of Jeffrey Epstein, but left untreated, this wound to our collective reality might just be a different story.